My name is Melissa Harvey. I'm from the Adobe Workfront team. I'm on the product marketing team. And one of the reasons that we're sponsoring this event, you may be wondering, one of the big things that we consider when we're looking at Adobe Workfront and our product is we view marketing work as a tier one asset. And there's so many different systems of records for different departments and different functions, finance, data, et cetera. But when you view marketing work as a tier one asset, you're able to start utilizing a marketing system of record, which is going to give you that visibility. And you're able to actually show data and benefits for your whole organization. So today we are going to be taking a deeper look at some of those benefits and discussing how you can use data to gain visibility and drive results. I have with me some excellent panelists. So I'm going to let you guys all just introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne Parkhill. I work for Elsevier, which is a large $3+ billion revenue a year global company that has its roots in scientific publishing, but is evolving and becoming more of a information analytics company. And I definitely work on the products that serve higher ed research data needs. My current role at this company is Director of Content Strategy and Development. So I work both helping form the strategy, working with digital and sales on that, and then I'm working with content creators to make sure we're doing the right thing. So straddle sort of both those worlds.
Thanks, Marianne. Patrick, let's move to you.
Patrick Bernardi here, Chief Marketing Officer of Hugh Freedy Group. Again, sorry if I already told this joke already, but so Hugh Freedy Group is pretty much the premier provider of dental instruments and infection control in the dental space. So I work in the dental industry. Prior to 2 years ago, we were an 111-year-old family-owned business, private in Chicago. Since that time, we've been acquired 2 times, the last time being last week. We're now part of the Steris organization. Not a commercial, but I am a Workfront customer. Inside of that system, I can speak to the benefits that my in-house agency team, we built an in-house agency inside, have received. In addition to that, I can speak to things like Salesforce migration and Tableau visualization and all of the things that the sales team throws arrows at us on, and talk to you a little bit about how we've navigated some of that.
Thanks, Patrick. And just moving over to Jamie.
I'm Jamie Ponachol. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Lionbridge. For those of you who don't know who Lionbridge is, we are one of the world's largest translation and localization companies. I joined Lionbridge about 3.5 years ago. We were taken private. We were public, taken private, part of the new executive team to transform and rebuild Lionbridge. And we basically tore the entire marketing team and function down to its studs and rebuilt it all back piece by piece, person by person, process by process. So I can talk to just about anything going on in marketing right now because we've hit literally every dimension of it. And I know there were, at least in our breakout group, there was a lot of questions about remote buying, remote work management. We're 6,000 people in 27 countries. We took the whole company virtual in about 3 weeks. Last March, and have been running that way and probably will never go back. My global team will never go back. So I'm very happy to talk about how we're sort of shifting the way in which we work into that remote, virtual, asynchronous, hybrid environment.
Jamie, let's actually just stick with you because that is a great segue into my first question. One of the things we know that marketing teams want to do is, improve digital experiences, not only for their customers, but working digitally in their teams as well. So can we hear a little bit more from how your team approached pivoting to a digital first strategy?
There's 2 sides to that. And actually, I think the way you framed it is super interesting. We've been doing this with our own customers to sort of really frame up. You've got a 2-pronged sort of swirling change going on right now. You've got digital transformation, which is really external. And for us, as Lionbridge, when I came in and took a look at the marketing team, the marketing tech stack, and frankly, the whole go-to-market motion, it was built in an analog world that digital was literally a sideshow. And if you look if you do my industry comps, most of the competitive websites they're just text brochures designed to try to show up somewhere in SEO. You can see it. You can see the way they've written the content, that it's really almost as if they don't believe anybody will get there. but they want to make sure they show up in Google. So we started building right from the get-go a digital first strategy. And I think, I mentioned this, a lot. Last year proved is how many companies really didn't understand what digital transformation meant. They even if they were engaged in it, they were doing what I like to refer to as digital kabuki theater. And we all got exposed to that last year because suddenly you took away all the rest of the toys. And frankly, it's the world's greatest A/B test, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We wiped out all other options and only had digital mechanisms for all intents and purposes. I was fortunate that I had set a digital first strategy in 2016, and then spent the better part of the last couple of years building the stack, the motion, the talent to that, even if the rest of the organization wasn't entirely on board with that particular journey. So when the pandemic hit, we were ready. And a few months later, the CRO looked at me and said, "Wow, your team's really turned it around." And I said, "Jim, we haven't turned anything around. You guys have just caught up to where we've been. We would have been doing this anyway. The pandemic just made it really clear."
Right.
And we actually had our best year, both as a marketing and as a sales team last year. And in Q1, we actually generated more pipeline, almost all digitally, than we did in all of 2020. And really for us, what we saw was all the resistance to the new motion and the new ideas went away because there was nothing else to compare it to. It was just pure success. You asked another interesting question, though, or you said another interesting thing, Melissa, that I think not enough companies are talking about, which is workforce transformation.
Sure.
And for years, we've all talked about how you have the consumerization of folks. I take my Amazon experience, I want to apply that everywhere else. You now see employees doing it. And that's, I think, the other thing that the last year has really exposed. And we pushed hard to Teams. I was one of the first executives to basically push my entire team onto Teams. And whether you use Slack or Teams or Zoom or whatever the heck the combination is, I basically told my team I was going to stop responding to email, which was as much about saving my email inbox, because I probably get 500 or 600 emails a day between all the marketing offers and all the CCs and the BCCs and the other stuff that executives get. But a lot of it was to try to force this behavior so that I could have a global team working asynchronously, because I've got folks on all 3 continents. And it's transformed how we work. It's completely leveled the balance between the team. There's no more haves and have-nots. There's no more home office and one person in Korea. There's just teams. But taking that asynchronous first mode is really difficult. We're about to double down our commitment to it and say, do we even need a meeting? And a pro tip I learned yesterday on Zoom, if you, or on any of these things, but I know you can do it on Zoom, you can't do it in Teams. Turn off your self view. So if you go to the 3 little dots up above your name, turn off self view. You will stare at yourself for 30% of the meeting if you leave it on there. And so it actually distracts you because you're so obsessed with yourself. It's just the ego talking. I started it and it's hard because I'm looking right now for myself. I was like, oh, is my camera on? Yeah. But it changes the way I focus. So anyway, there's my little tip for the day.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And, I love that you have that single launching pad for everyone. So what you shared with the digital transformation, I think is huge. Patrick, I know your team went through digital transformation as well. What were your learnings from that?
I don't think you're ever done, by the way.
Sure.
So, again, so much of, each of us on this call bring our own unique circumstances to the table. And so again, aligning corporate objectives to whatever you're going to be doing depends on what business model you're in. And so in 2008, 2009, when the economic dip hit, we sell through distribution. And so, we sell through Henry Schein and Patterson Dental, and they're the ones that, get the orders placed with them for our stuff. But at the same time, when, the stuff hits the fan and, the customer wants a cheaper product, they're not going to advocate for us, which is a premium product. So what we learned at that point was like, listen, we might not take the order, but we need to do everything else in terms of reaching, teaching, engaging, influencing, all the way up to that magic moment when the sale is converted, such that when, the Henry Schein distributor guy walks in the dentist office, say, hey, doc, what do you need? He's like, hey, I saw this thing from, Hugh Freedy or Hugh Freedy Group, and that is what so we went to work on websites, social channels, influencer programs. So I would say that we've been on a 10-year, migration path to the point now where, and I don't like to use the word stack, but, our stack is strong if that's a thing. But, I don't have to wait for anybody to send a message out to anybody who I want to. I don't have to wait to be in the Henry Schein monthly flyer. I don't have to do any of that. I can control the dialogue. I can control the journey. And so recently, we've added Salesforce and Tableau and Pardot, and and not just to do it. There's a business reason why. And
Right.
yes, we have an outside sales team. One of their jobs is to influence the distribution sales team, but also to influence the end user. And so whether it was content marketing or leads generated from marketing that never used to happen, there's a lot of sunshine on the horizon. We're still battling a couple things, as everybody is, but it's part of how we do business now.
Yeah, makes total sense. Marianne, moving over to you, I know you've seen your digital experiences evolve as well. What did that look like for your team?
Yeah, so we launched the products that I market about 15 years ago ish, some sooner, some later, but our market is pretty small. So we target global research intensive universities. And honestly, there are about 400 of those in the US. And the US is one of the biggest countries with respect to research universities. I mean, India, China, are big. Brazil is big, and each of the European countries is medium. But if you add up all of mature Europe together, it's pretty big. But nothing. But really, if you look at there's a global ranking system. It's kind of like U.S. News and World Report college rankings here in the States, but it's more globally focused, called Times Higher Ed, and it ranks research intensive universities, and they only rank 1,400. There's probably another 700 or 800 that are on the cusp of being ranked. So anyway, that's a long way of saying, we sell high-end products to research intensive universities. So when we launched the go-to-market, 15 years ago, the strategy was really hire a bunch of really good salespeople, train them up, and have them go call on these universities, because the numbers were small enough that they could actually develop one-on-one relationships with these universities. And that proved very successful at the beginning and for a while. And it's still to a certain point true. But as we all know in this room, people don't want to talk to people anymore. I mean, I know that if you put a button that says show me a demo versus schedule a demo, it's at least an 80% increase on people that are going to hit that button. We dabbled in digital, but it was just kind of like, I forgot, one of my panelists said, kind of an offshoot that wasn't really integrated. So in the last few years, we've really developed a vision for content strategy that's about answering the customer's questions when they have them, with content, and guiding them along until they're really ready to actually talk to somebody. And that's supported with digital efforts, so that we're all in sync, and supported with sales enablement efforts, which I will admit are not always successful. But anyway, it's a journey, but I think I'm really happy with the way we've started it and the path we're on. Obviously, suddenly last year, sales was clamoring for what they were calling marketing door openers, which translated really into good content that could engage the audience. And luckily, we were there for them. And so everyone's thinking a little bit differently. So it's an exciting time, I think, here.
I think about this a lot. I'm a big believer in the William Gibson quote, the future's already here, just unevenly distributed. There is nothing that happened in the last 15 months. There's nothing we're using or a change that has been happening that wasn't happening before the last 15 months. Right. Not a single one of them. They were all out there, right? Move to work from home, the rise of virtual meeting capabilities, AI, digital selling, all of this stuff. And I think I bring that up and emphasize it, because this is how I lead. And I think it's where a lot of organizations where they miss, all the signals are there.
Right.
Are you using them? How are you using them? Are you taking them seriously? Are you using these new things to question, how you do business? To Patrick's point, there'll be a mix of adoption that's different based on your users, your buyers, the moment, et cetera. But it's not as if 15 months ago you couldn't have looked and said, what are all the trends that are happening, and seen that some of these things were important. And it's I think it's just too important a point to miss, because it's so easy for us to just go back into, okay, great, that's over. Right. And now we can just, settle in. And no, because by the way, there's another 15 new ones that are lining up right behind this one.
What I would say, first of all, yes, and to that. And more than anything, it gets down to human stuff like comfort and fear. Right. And, I've already had people coming out of the woodworks and saying, please tell me we're going back to trade shows. And I'm like, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And maybe we should have, rationalized our crazy spend on this stuff anyway, a long time ago. But, tell me, well, then let's have all the answers that are going to come up. It's like, you don't understand. Like, no, I'm pretty sure I do understand it. It's like, but why? I mean, our competitors are so what? So, I mean, this is the time where and we've had some spirited conversations on some, but now's the time to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that anyone in marketing has been in this trap before, where it's, what's the next product? What's the next solution? What's the feature? What are we enhancing? And then if you just take a step back and think, what does a customer actually need? And Marianne, you had even mentioned this, like meeting the customer where they actually are. Like that's
how do we make money, and how do we really influence, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't understand, a new product's going to launch at the trade show. Why?
This connects very much to the data question. And for me anyway, I spent a fair amount of time on these for the last 15 months, probably more than I usually do, just making sure I'm okay. How is everybody navigating this and those kinds of things? And it was fascinating to me to listen to how many people were frozen through all of this. It struck me we won't see something quite as big, as momentous, hopefully, as we just went through. But there are a lot of these moments where something happens where you have this opportunity to smash through resistance, and you've got the data to do it, right? So, I mean, Patrick, we had the same problem. When I got here, we quite literally spent a third of the marketing budget on trade shows. And I turned it off to zero, or on the way to zero, long before the pandemic. The pandemic gave me just unabashed data to show, like, we're not going back. And I actually haven't had a single person ask me to go back, interestingly enough. The fight went away because we now had all of the data to support it. There's just no economic comparison. And so my counsel, right, look for these moments where something happens where you can smash through the resistance. Right? We've now got social selling going on. We've been trying to get our folks to do that for 2 or 3 years before. But we took away planes, trains, and automobiles, and suddenly LinkedIn was their only way to engage. And all of a sudden they discovered, wow, you guys have all this content to share.
Yeah. Such a good point.
Why didn't you tell us that this was here? I have been. You haven't been listening.
And I think our not only internally are we social selling, that's how our customers want to buy. So I think that's, we shouldn't miss that point either, is they don't really want to engage with a salesperson until they've done all the homework. And if you are there with the homework that they're doing, then you're in a great position. And if you're not, and your competitor is, you may not make the short list.
I'm not sure if there's any still existing Gary Vee fans on this call, but maybe he's jumped the shark a little bit on a couple of things. But one of the things he did say that I think is right is, the jab, right hook, and, give value, and eventually you'll be able to ask for value back. And I do believe in that.
Yeah, I think so too.
And if you're not doing that, as we move into a cookieless world, you're going to be in an unbelievable world of hurt, because we are about to take away all of the laziness, the fake lazy stuff that allowed us to get away with not doing that.
I did want to segue a little bit deeper into something you've all brought up in the last couple of minutes, and that is looking at data and how it relates to measuring up to goals, and how you're tracking that and how much you can see in your department itself. So Patrick, we can start with you. Just, how are your organizational goals set, communicated to the department, and what does your visibility look like? Can you, see what events and what campaigns are doing, and who your resources are that are on those?
So giant question. I'll take it from two angles, Melissa. First, the internal piece is, and again, for those of you who run in-house agencies, maybe you're going to feel my pain here. It's like, the only thing that I've never been able to do in my 12 years here is stop the train. Can't stop it. Train keeps running. And don't you say no, and take all the work and be resourceful. And so I'm now in a position to say, listen here, because of Workfront, I can tell you that I did 19 billion changes to this stupid sell sheet or this campaign or whatever. And I can tell you where it's at, and you got to pull your weight. And I didn't use it as a weapon, but I was able to justify headcount additions or work that was stupid that came to my department, and coaching product managers on what's good and what's bad. So I was able to actually make business cases off of it. Externally, what we've been able to do, and this was really hard. Again, we don't sell direct to the customer, but what we do get is transactional data from our distributors who say, here's who bought, your junk. And what we've done is we put that into Salesforce. And what we've done is we've started to say, amazingly, who didn't do the thing that we wanted them to go do? And we're able then to put together, automated sequenced Pardot campaigns, marketing automation. And we've been able to come back and say, in the grand scheme, is it $1 billion worth of revenue that I can justify? No. But at the same time, I can throw 400 grand somewhere. It's like, this was because of this campaign, right? So right. In forever, my leadership team was like, tell us to do more of this and less of this. What worked, what didn't. And I'm like, I now have data to tell me to stop, turn left here, but don't turn right there.
Right.
And that's the first time I've had that. And again, in the chasm that has sometimes existed with sales and marketing, not here actually too much, but having them say, go fish over there. Don't give me any crap now. Don't give me any crappy leads. Here, did you know that nobody in North Texas is buying this thing that they should buy? Holy crap, thank you. That is where our credibility at the table is leaps and bounds now.
Marianne, what about you? What does that insight look like for you with your marketing team, what they're working on, how those resources are allocated?
We follow we try to limit it, but we follow certain data that helps us define our strategy. I think obviously number one is we want to know how many opportunities we've been able to help get. So that's number one, but there's a lot of things leading to that big number that are important to keep an eye on. And I think they all have to relate back to what your goals are. Right. So for instance, we figured out that we had a low awareness amongst our primary persona for the products we wanted to sell. They were aware of our company, but they weren't aware of our capabilities. So we have been working for a while now on awareness as our primary marketing goal. So we are watching our SEO on some of our new pages. We are watching how long, all sorts of web statistics, how long they're staying on the page, what does the traffic look like, all that, because we have a strategy to gain awareness through SEO and web strategy. So, but we also have, I'm in an acquisitions team, so we also have commercial goals.
Right.
So we look very closely at what data, what campaigns are working and what are not. We're in an unfortunate situation now with our digital agency that they're not sharing as much data as we want. And the reason this has come to light is because we're getting so much more demanding on what we need to know. And they're scrambling a bit. And, so, we'll probably have to change out that relationship. But, I think, but because we're now more laser focused on what our goals are for overall strategy and each individual campaigns, that we know exactly what we're looking for. And if we don't have it, we look for proxies that are close. And if we, like web traffic is a good proxy for awareness, it doesn't exactly measure it. Yeah. So I think that's the missing piece a lot, is people just look at lots of numbers.
Right.
And, they opened all of our emails, but, if we were trying to, get them to buy something from that email and nobody had a demo based on that, then it wasn't successful. So yeah, I think that's, for me, that has been a nice pivot in
Mhm.
order to be able to actually make good decisions based on data versus just trying
Yeah.
to absorb so much.
Now we used to go and do it on a balanced scorecard method, which is an
Okay.
interesting thing, but invariably, I think you'll probably get a lot of head nods here. I think we've all made it way too complex, you
Right.
know, and also invariably, ready for our corporate goals and objectives? There are 14 of them. Ready? So, and we're like, oh, kill me, because then you're going to do nothing.
Right.
But nobody knows how to say no to stuff. And so
Mhm.
if you can come down and say, listen, what are the 3 things that we need to do to address customer needs, adapt to trends, and you'll get to the answer. And then that
Mhm.
helps cascade, or at least it should, to, when you're doing your marketing planning, at least for our perspective, when the SBUs come in and the product marketers and say, okay, you're taking share from who, and how are we going to do that, and how are we going to help you? Don't tell me that you need an ad. Don't tell me your business problem, and let's go get it. And by the
Right.
way, that dovetails nicely to our second corporate goal, which was to blah blah blah.
Mhm.
That's how. And in the same token, and this is harder, it's like, I want to do a pink elephant parade down Main Street. I'm like, nah, I don't see that anywhere here. So I'm going to say no to that, and
Mhm.
I'm going to challenge you on that. So it helps you frame your no's too.
And that actually, we're getting a little bit close on time, so just want to be cognizant of the clock. But one of the things I did want to ask all of you about that kind of lends itself into prioritization, and how you not only prioritize, but how you make sure that the teams are working, not, working together, collaborating, and getting out of the silo so that they can reach those priorities. So, Jamie, can we actually start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about what your prioritization schedule looks like, how that's evolved over time?
I guess I'll offer up 2 things. I liken marketing planning these days to GPS. And for the last couple of years, Lionbridge is headquartered in Boston. I live in near New York, so and was going up there a lot. What's true about that trip is the point of departure is the same, and the point of arrival is the same. But I'll bet on any given week, the path was never the same. Traffic, weather, time of day, accidents, bathroom breaks, Tesla charger stops, et cetera, right? And I think this is, because you hear a lot of people talk about agile marketing, and pivoting. You could just as easily, and this is, I fight this a lot now. It's like, trying to keep the organization focused is like, it's watching a cat chase a laser light. It never catches it, and it never stays in the same moment long enough to have a chance, right? And so, I part of it is because I'm in a B2B, the kind of sales motion that we're in. We're not going to sell a lot of stuff direct. We just aren't. Certainly not of the stuff that really moves the revenue dial here. Which in some ways makes it be very easy, because what I do is I gather a ream of data and I force the CRO to tell me where he wants trade-offs to happen. Like, I don't care. It's your pipeline number. You tell me where you want me to point the weapons. I can help you in life sciences. I can help you in FinServe. I can help you in Japan. I can help you in Korea. I don't care. I have an opinion, but I have no dog in the hunt. Because at the end of the day, when we sit down with the board, they're not going to look at me and say, why'd you prioritize that way? They're going to look at Jim and say, what happened to the prioritization? And so that just takes me right back to data. Right? Having a command of what's going on, a command of the activities. One of the things that really worked well for us was somewhat accidental, but in the early days of when we went virtual, the CEO stood up daily stand-ups with most of the functions. And at first, my team was very resistant. Oh my God, all the work, we're gonna have to prepare for a stand-up every day. How are we gonna do that? What are we gonna say? And I'm like, guys, this is the greatest thing ever. They're about to wade straight into the sausage factory and understand what it takes to make a piece of content, whether or not it has any impact, whether the salespeople are downloading it. Because I've now I've instrumented everything. I can tell you if it's in our content portal, has anybody downloaded, how many times have they shared it? And really what it showed is marketing was doing its job, and sales was not then following through with the asset. It changed the discussion. Interestingly enough, we still hold those daily stand-ups to this day. 30 minutes every day, start the day, CEO, CRO, and me with some portion of my team. and it makes the prioritization then in some sense quite simple, because we've got engagement with real data. They can see where it impacts, and they can then say, oh, great, this is how we want to train the limited resources. So it helps me manage a little bit of here are the 31 number one priorities to Patrick's point. Right. I mean, I literally had this conversation with my boss the other day. Oh, okay, this is important. John, just how important? Like important enough to, well, it's not a top priority, but it's a priority. Okay, that tells me something. That's at least a distinction I can begin to work with. But just the last thought I have on that, because I think it's important. We have now moved into a data-driven universe. And I have an advantage because one of the first things I did was quite literally rip my tech stack to its bones. The only thing we left standing was Marketo. And even then, I shut demand gen down for 6 months, and I pulled all the data out of Marketo, cleansed it, deduped it, scrubbed it, fixed the way it interfaced with Salesforce, et cetera, so that I have something amounting to clean data. It is not perfect, but it is now good data. You think about what we're doing, both with the data-driven decisions, but right on the back of this is automated personalization, AI, I've got demand-based running automated buyer journey orchestrations.
Right.
If I have bad data, all I have done is scaled stupidity at speed. Okay. Which is what most of us are doing, right? Because it starts with clean data. And I cannot emphasize this enough, how important it is to find a way to carve that out in your prioritization set. Because without that, all we are going to do is scale really bad information. And in fact, less good information is better than lots of polluted information, right? And my final thing, because this is one of my favorite metaphors, when you've got a polluted river, a polluted ocean, right? You've got two strategies to fix it. You can build a sewage treatment plant, which is what most of us do, or you can stop polluting the damn river, which is much, much harder. If you don't do the latter, you just end up with really expensive sewage treatment plants, and that you just have to keep building. So we made it a priority when I got here. It was painful and long slog to get there, but it's part of what has empowered me now to push back on the CRO, or I have a CRO who walks into board meetings saying, marketing's doing everything I need them to do. It's now on sales to pull through. Part of that's because he's got all the data that shows him what we're doing to contribute to sales meetings, to pipeline, to account-based engagement, to some of these other key things. Without the data, it's just everybody points at marketing and says it's their fault.
Right.
Which many of us experience often.
Always marketing's fault. Yeah. So kind of in the same vein, we just have a couple minutes left, but Patrick, I did want to hear from you because you've mentioned your in-house agency a couple of times. And I'm just curious, with moving to virtual, how are all of those teams staying connected between your in-house creatives, your performance marketers? Has that been harder, easier, a little bit of both some days?
Crazy. And again, maybe this isn't going to be a shocker, but I would contend that it was our finest hour. I saw more personal development and growth from younger team members than I've ever seen, and more productivity in the face of. Remember, we're right in it. We make masks, we make sterilizing stuff, and so we had just launched we just got acquired. We're trying to relaunch a brand campaign. Had to stop and say, hey, dentists, here's what you need to do. Here's the guidelines. We switched to an education mode. Launched a new microsite. We put tons of resources and education materials, webinars, digital, everything. So, and they were busier than they've ever been because of the urgency of the moment. And so it was their finest hour. I've not seen any problems with collaboration. We launched products during this time.
Right.
We had our first ever virtual trade show. That was a huge hit. And this is it. And I'm with Jamie, why would you go back now? Because especially as you're looking at the job market, and I don't know if any of you guys, but I've lost a couple people because the job market's hot right now. It's a retention play. So yeah.
I mean, we do everything in houses as well, Patrick, and I brought that in over the course of the last year. And now our quality of all of our assets is so much better. Our speed to market is so much better. And our job satisfaction, I'm going to agree, people love to be able to go create a video or take a video and make digital 15-second LinkedIn ads out of it. And so everyone is flourishing. I think it's really one of the best things we did. I'm out of the agency management game, which I really didn't like.
Me too.
Writing briefings and having meetings and reviewing crappy work. I'm done. I don't have to do that anymore. And I'm very happy about that.
Awesome. Thanks for weighing in on that, Marianne.